Welcome into another Crossing the Lines quick hits. Jack Milewski, Mike D'avella, and while I was introducing ourselves, Andrew Funk just made another three. We're talking Penn State basketball, first tournament appearance since 2011, and boy, did they not disappoint. Instant reactions here, just going to go through everything quick. But we've watched a lot of Penn State basketball this year. I'm going to say we haven't watched much in the last 10 years since that tournament run. Probably didn't watch any during that tournament run either. But from what we've watched this year, an easy win was not in the cards tonight. That was a stunning performance by Penn State.
I mean, you can't ask for much more. We've been waiting for one of these since 2001. Just to put it into perspective, Jack, this is the first win Penn State basketball has had in the tournament since just before 9/11. So, I mean, this has been a long time coming. The first time they held a lead in an NCAA tournament game since 91. And I'm still kind of surprised that just happened. It's definitely, for us as Penn State graduates, very exciting to see. But it really was the Andrew Funk show. 27 points, 8 of 10 from three. I mean, that guy probably just played himself into some money.
We needed that for Andrew Funk, that little fire extinguisher in the background right there.
Whoa, watch out. But I mean, Jalen Pickett, man, he is such a unbelievable guy. Penn State really hasn't had a player like him in quite some time, and it just shows that he can create points. He can really, move off the dribble well, back that thing up, move down to the court. He reminds me of like vintage Jalen Brunson, and it was pretty impressive to see what he was able to do. Penn State just looked a lot more confident, and Texas A&M is no slouch. I think that, the problem was that they couldn't really get anything going. The two fouls earlier on Taylor really hurt them to be able to establish a game plan. But I mean, dude, pretty ridiculously lopsided game. And I don't know that many people were expecting that going into this game. But hey, the bracket is looking good, man. I'll tell you what.
I feel like it was one of those rare games. I mean, you have the 8-9 matchups, which are coin flip of who should be the 8, who should be the 9. But like, this was one of those rare games where it was almost the dead heat. It was like half of the people were saying Texas A&M, and half of the people had a very good opinion as to why they would win, because they finished the season 16-3. They were 15-3 in SEC play. They went up against Bama, who's one of the best teams in the nation, lost to them in the finals. And then on the flip end, Penn State won some dramatic games down the stretch, took Purdue to the final buzzer. So both cases to be made for both sides were completely valid. I had no idea. I mean, we picked Penn State because we're Penn Staters, but I don't think it was like we know Penn State's going to win this game. They're going to dominate this game the way they did. But yeah, booty ball rules the world right now. I don't care what I think it was it Indiana's coach, Illinois' coach that was mad about Jalen Pickett backing guys down. They're not going to call anything. It's going to work. Ridiculous. But when Pickett can back guys into the paint, and then he's got an array of sharpshooters around the arc, that was always the recipe for success, right? They always had to shoot the three well. They didn't have to shoot it over 65% well to win games, but it's going to be interesting going into next game against Texas. Usually 3-point shooting is streaky, so I'm just not sure how much of this performance we're going to see again.
Right. And they hit 13 threes. I mean, earlier in the year, they hit 18 against Indiana, their first win against them. So we know this team can hit threes and hit them efficiently, and that's their game. I think going into this next matchup against Texas is probably the strongest 2 seed in my opinion. So it's going to be a difficult matchup for them. A long, lengthy, athletic team that probably is going to give them some trouble on the boards. I think that, offensive rebounds were tough for Penn State tonight, but it wasn't necessarily something that really killed them. They were able to stick to their game plan, and they were really able to make, like we saw in the score, make it a little bit more lopsided and play their game and make Texas A&M shoot threes. So I think Texas is going to be a much tougher matchup. I still think it plays into the hand of Penn State, but again, uphill battle there. And I do think that it was really interesting to see, and just kind of going off on a different path here, watching Micah Shrewsbury decide to put in some of those younger guys at the end of the game. I think that Penn State's future is still pretty bright. Seeing Kebajai
Mhm.
have some quality minutes. Evan Mahaffey made a big difference tonight in a couple of areas defensively with his athleticism. Kanye Clary, some of the guys that they're bringing in. I mean, obviously, you don't know with Shrewsbury if he stays at Penn State. They're going to be able to keep some of the guys in the next recruiting class, but they've got that young kid, Kerry Booth, coming in. Shrewsbury's son is going to be coming in. So exciting future if you're a Penn State basketball fan. Can't really be said for the past couple of decades, but a
No.
really change in pace in Penn State basketball.
Yeah, I mean the word of the night was fun, and then the other word of the night was that same word with a K afterwards. But like when you look at Penn State basketball, we talk about the football a lot, right? Like what a big whiteout game win does, what a bowl game win does. Like this is the equivalent of that for Penn State basketball. And when you talk about building a program for the future, yes, I still think they need to get Shrewsbury back anyway. They can do it. They have to get him back. That's a large piece too. But even if he leaves, what this team has done is going to have ramifications for the future. And this is what the 2020 team was robbed of right before COVID. That was a team that was a better team than this team, no doubt about it. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. As good as Jalen Pickett is, Lamar Stevens was better that season. They probably were a Sweet 16 team unless they faltered. I mean, this team is playing with house money this year, whereas the 2020 team would have been a 4 or 5, maybe a 6 seed at the absolute highest. But yeah, going back to Texas again, like I don't even throw the matchups out the window right now with this Penn State team. Like matchup wise, they don't match up well against Purdue at all, and they had a chance to win that game. So I just think they're playing with house money. When you have guys like Andrew Funk shooting threes, lights out like he is, they've got a chance. And yeah, it'll be a fun run. 7:45. It was just announced for Saturday. I'm going to be more invested in Penn State basketball than I ever have before at 7:45 on Saturday.
Oh, without a doubt. And Jack, one thing that I think is really pertinent to bring up when you talk about that Purdue game in the Big Ten championship, we had an unbelievable performance tonight against A&M from Andrew Funk. He went 0
Yeah,
for 5 from 3 against Purdue, and
right.
they still lost by 2. So, I mean, this team is extremely hot. Only takes a couple of runs to get to the Sweet 16, to the Elite Eight. Who knows where they go from there? Obviously, Texas is probably going to be one of the toughest tests they face. So we're going to know a lot more come Saturday night. But I saw, speaking of Lamar Stevens, him tweet out that he thinks 3 of the Penn Staters, Pickett, Funk, and Seth Lundy, all belong in the league.
Yeah.
So pretty high praise from him. And I mean, I'll throw it back to you. What do you think about this Texas Penn State matchup? If you were to go in, who do you lean? What do you think is the difference maker? Obviously, a really intriguing matchup.
Yeah, I mean, you lean Texas. I think it's bias me says state by 50, but I say that for every Penn State sport. It doesn't matter whether 50 is attainable or not. State by 50 is the motto. But I think when you look at this game, it's Texas. They're lengthy inside. They're athletic. That's what gives Penn State problems. You saw it tonight. Texas A&M isn't even as big as Texas is, and they were getting second and third chances on the offensive side. If they didn't shoot as equally as bad as Penn State shot well from 3, this game would be a lot closer than it was. That being said, again, in March, we saw it today already with the likes of Arizona going down and Virginia going down. Prepare for the unexpected. So for Penn State, I mean, the 3 biggest keys are Jalen Pickett doing what Jalen Pickett does. We saw a couple games in the Big Ten tournament where he was very, very cold for stretches. He can't get cold for a stretch against Texas. He has to be as good as he is always for all 40 minutes. He'll probably play close to, if not all 40 minutes again. Key number 2 is you have to stay hot from 3 because they are going to dominate the glass more so than Texas A&M did. So if Funk isn't the guy, if he's 0 for 5, you still have Dredd, you still have Lundy. You've got other shooters out there. That's the scary part. Lundy and Dredd didn't even shoot the 3 ball that well tonight. It was the Andrew Funk show. They can get just as hot. And then I think the third key is right. Like Texas is supposed to win the game. So Penn State's key is going in with the same mentality. I think they've attacked this last, month and a half with is that Ted Lasso yellow paper believe stamped on
And
their
Ted
wall.
Lasso's back. The first episode of season 3 just dropped.
I haven't watched has a lot to be said for a team not caring about what anyone thinks. And they've already won one more game than a lot of people thought they were going to win. They've already made a tournament that no one had them in at the beginning of March. So, yeah, I mean, those are the three keys for Penn State. That being said, handicap this matchup. I think Texas is probably opening line, probably favors them by 7.5, 8.5, maybe as high as 9.5.
Yeah, I think 7.5 is a pretty solid start. I think it was
Yeah,
4.5. A&M was the favorite going into this game, at least what I saw it at. But hey, like you mentioned earlier, they're playing with house money. I think probably 99% of people that aren't Penn Staters are probably going Texas. I think that's probably a smart place to put your money.
sure.
It is going to be a definitive tough challenge for Penn State to get through. However, they're playing pretty hot right now. And just to switch gears, Jack, I'm really curious because I know we were talking about it earlier this morning. How's the bracket look for you?
So So I have it made for content. I've made three, but one was an autofill coin flip because I love to see how that always plays out. And the second one was one to see the Nittany Lion logo next to it. I picked Penn State to win the national championship. So that one's doing great right now. But my actual bracket, the only thing that's really hurting me now is Arizona's loss, but I had them out in the Elite Eight anyway, so I'm not too worried
Okay.
about it.
Okay.
I think you had Arizona in your Elite Eight too. Is that correct?
I think it was, I have to look right now because I'm pretty sure that I either had them just into the Elite Eight or I had them out in the Sweet 16. No, I had them
Arizona's
out in the Sweet 16, so that doesn't hurt me that
that's
much. I only have 2 losses today after the entire first day. The first game, I picked literally 12. What was it? I think it locked at 12-15 or something.
yep.
The minute before I decided to change from Maryland to West Virginia. And I was like, oh man, 0 for 1 already. It's starting.
Were you listening to John Denver in the morning and you're like, country
I don't know. It's
roads,
something.
baby.
There was so much hype over West Virginia, the McAfee show. I've been watching a lot of different stuff with the NFL draft or NFL free agency this week, and I just felt the magic. It did not end up coming
Yeah.
through. However, I had Furman. That was real exciting, and every other team I had won today, aside from Arizona and Maryland beating West Virginia. So, hey, we're in the 99.8 percentile right now. We're just like Penn State playing with house money. It's very rare that I get to this point.
Virginia and Greg Hardy love getting knocked out in the first round.
Love that.
It's incredible. I mean,
However, point that I do need to make is I do have Penn State going to the Elite Eight in this bracket. For whatever reason, I was like, screw it. None of these brackets have high stakes on them. I can't put myself in a position to root against them for the good of the bracket. Not that I would anyway, but I just felt like it'd be more fun to be excited by some of these upsets. And we've already got one in the book. So the next one's going to be huge, but I'm excited.
yeah, hell yeah, it's going to be a great game. I feel like we've said words, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around how good that performance was tonight from Penn State.
I have some words for you. Won't you take me to Funky Town?
Bingo. We should end on that, but I think we're going to end on some rash, probably biased predictions for Saturday. I'll let you start off. I know you have Penn State to your Elite Eight, so this isn't even really biased, even though that was a biased pick to take them to the Elite Eight. But you have them going on in your bracket. I don't, so you have every right to pick them to win this game. What are we seeing?
Well, I have to go with them. I think that probably the rationale is out the window at this point. I don't necessarily feel like thinking
There's
with
no
your
rationale to
head
begin with in
is
March.
worth it. Right. So I'm going to go Penn State 67 and Texas 65. I think it's going to be one of those tight games, a similar score to what we saw against Purdue in the Big Ten championship. However, it's the other side of the coin. Penn State ends up getting the win. I think there's just too much magic surrounding them, and I have to think with my heart on this one. Anything in my brain in terms of analytics or predictions, everything is telling me Texas, and I can't do that. So I'm gonna have to stick with Penn State because that's what March is all about. You got to have your one shining moment and keep this Cinderella going, baby. I love it.
Penn State's the only stat you need to know is their vibes per 40 are highest of any team in the tournament right now. It's pretty incredible. I'm putting $5 on every single March Madness game until I run out of money. I put 100 in to start, and this first day I completely broke even, more or less. I won half, I lost half. I did put 5 on Penn State money line. I don't think I'm courageous enough to put 5 on Penn State money line again. I'll probably take them to cover. Realistically, I think Texas probably wins this game by 6, with a couple late free throws making it a little less close than it actually was. But since, again, you mentioned all those stats at the beginning, this is Penn State's first tournament appearance in over 10 years. This is their first tournament win and their largest ever, and that wasn't even close. Their largest tournament win before this was 12 points. But yeah, like you said, all these stats from before we could even speak, basically. I'm going to say I like Penn State in this one. They're going to shoot lights out again. I think it's 75-69 Penn State. They get the dub over Texas, and I see Miles Dredd being the catalyst with 4 or 5 threes.
I like it.
We'll be watching.
He was 2 for 2 tonight. I know Seth Lundy had a little bit of trouble, but Miles Dredd off the bench, he had a couple opportunities. He was pretty strong. And what I'll leave you with, Jack, you mentioned 2001, Penn State 7 versus 10 matchup. They were the 7 seed. They beat Providence to go to the round of 32. They did play a 2 seed. It was North Carolina. They ended up beating them by 8 to go to the Sweet 16. They lost in the Sweet 16 to Temple. However, hey, history might repeat itself, and that's all we can hope for. And the last thing I will leave you with, aside from that, and I know we've spoken about it off camera, but I feel like I'd be remiss not to bring it up. Last time Penn State got all the way to the Final Four, 1954-55 season. They showed it at the end of the broadcast. That team in the Final Four lost to LaSalle, and my grandfather was on that LaSalle team. So I feel a lot of pressure internally for some of that family juju to turn itself around, as my alma mater, Penn State's finally making that comeback, hoping that they might be able to make some magic happen in this March Madness tournament. But all excitement, man. A lot of good vibes going on into this tournament.
Luckily, your grandpa is not playing for any of the teams remaining. He cannot ruin the run this time.
Rest his soul.
I mean, yeah, rest his soul, but Penn State could have won a national championship. So the only thing bad I have to say about your grandpa there. Mike D'avella, Jack Milewski, crossing the line every Monday from 9 to 10 if we decide to post it live. We'll figure that out at some point. But right now we're just figuring out how to process talking shooty hoops that actually matter here in March for the Penn State Nittany Lions. We'll talk to y'all later.
Basketball, give me the ball because I'm gonna funk it. Yeah. Oh, I like that. All right, we'll catch you next time.